Welcome into Running It Straight here on SENZ for another Wednesday. Big shout out to everyone watching on YouTube Live. You can drop a comment there or you can text us in on 8833. We're at finals time. We are at finals time, and if I told you back at the start of the year that the Warriors were going to finish inside the top 8, you might have been a little bit surprised. If I told you they were going to finish inside the top 4, you probably would have laughed me out of the door. But here we are, ahead of the first round. Kempy sitting in 4th position with a trip to Penrith on Saturday for game 1 of the finals. It's a little bit hard to believe when you think back to where we were, even 12 months ago.
12 months ago, 24 months ago. I think when you look at it after 27 rounds, it probably could have been a little bit better. I thought we could have ended up a little bit higher than 4th, and we always said that it would come down later on in the round semi to the back end of the competition, especially the last week of the competition where you saw the Roosters jump inside the 8. We wrote them off 5 weeks ago.
Yep.
And they've come in and South Sydney, who we picked at the beginning of the year, in the middle of the year, to be top of the table, finishing top, and really threatening Penrith out of the 8 and nowhere to be seen also the Cowboys. So it's been a really interesting 27 rounds under the new format with the Dolphins, who no one picked to actually win a game. Just, I reckon the talk of the year, if you're talking about the most improved team, well, it has to be the Dolphins coming in under Wayne Bennett. But yeah, what a season for the Warriors, finishing 4th, up against the Premiers, going for a three-peat this year, and looking really, really good after last week's game. I was just talking to one of the boys about that, getting rid of the Cowboys early, because you don't want them inside the 8, because they were playing for an 8th position. And we head to Penrith and under the Blue Mountains, trying to get a job done against a team that, listening to Nathan Cleary last night, saying that even more so they want this one than the other 2.
Interesting. I almost think that the Warriors deserve to have sort of finished in 3rd as well, Kempy, because had they played the full strength team against the Dolphins, I think they get the job done. So if not for the rest, they probably even would have finished higher. We're going to catch up with Matty Johns. We love catching up with Matty when things get to the business end. So we're going to do that in around about 10 minutes time. We'll go through the finals games with Matty and get his take on how it might all play out. Kempy and I are going to really dive into the Warriors Panthers from around about 2:30 and just really get stuck into how this Warriors team breaks down the Penrith Panthers, where the key areas are, and how on Saturday at 8 p.m. we might be looking at a Warriors win, and it would then be a home prelim final 2 weeks later, which would just be fantastic. But just until we get to Matty, Kempy, I wanted to talk just a little bit about how that season did finish up. Teams down the bottom, I think when me and you did our ladder predictions, Tigers, Dragons, certainly right towards the bottom. Dolphins weren't far off either. Some people had them as wooden spooners. And then when you look at teams like the Titans, the Seagulls, it was that big question if they've got Tommy, if they don't have Tommy. They've sort of finished where they've finished. The Bulldogs, maybe a little bit of a surprise. I think some of us had them higher this year. We thought maybe they'd be just in behind the 8 in sort of a 9 or 10 position if they were to improve under Cameron Ciraldo, but not to be.
Yeah, look, I think when you look at 9, 10, 11 and 12, the Rabbitohs, the Eels, the Cowboys and the Seagulls, a lot of people at the beginning of the year had them inside the 8.
100%.
So you've got them kicked out of the 8 and obviously pushed down those teams that no one had really had Canberra there this year. The Knights have been a massive surprise, winning 9 in the row, and of course the Warriors sitting in 3rd position. I think everyone else you would have had inside your 8 there, but the Titans, the Bulldogs, the Dragons and the Tigers have been the disappointing teams this season. I think the Titans, the amount of money that they've spent up there, getting Fafita on the edge, they've signed for Samuel again, and bringing up Kieran Form from Manly to try and stabilise a ship just didn't really eventuate. And you could be saying the same thing about Canterbury, because their bigger off-scene signing and kick-out was to shore up that left edge with Matt Burton. Matt Burton, I feel, is the most overrated player in the competition. Does Stephen Crichton go there next year? Does Jerome Luai follow him? That's the big off-field question, because apparently he's been offered a contract with Penrith that is probably 300 grand short of where it should be. And I think where the tables ended up, given the back end of the season, the biggest surprise for me, no Rabbits. Like, no South Sydney with the likes of Latrell Mitchell, the perennial chokers when you think about it. They've been there. They were a game away last year from winning it. Since they went there, I can't remember the year when Isaac Luke missed it through suspension and Upper Curacao played hooker. Sam Burgess picked up player of the day against Canterbury. They just have been such a disappointment. And I think you've got to say under Demetrio this year, finishing 9th, they're probably the biggest loser of the year.
Yeah, well, when I put them up against the Eels, I'm not totally surprised that the Eels did struggle a little bit, given I know they were grand finalists last year, but they lost 4 or 5 guys from their squad. Not gutted, but certainly some big names, which I thought may sort of hinder them this year. I still had them in the 8. But see, for the Rabbitohs, they've kept that team together for the best part of 3 years now. Like they almost don't lose. They haven't lost anyone really from that team. They still have Damien Cook. They got Cody Walker, Latrell, Campbell, Graham, Alex Johnston. Like these guys haven't moved on. And you know, sometimes you look at players moving around and say that's why teams struggle. The Rabbitohs don't really have an excuse.
Well, Demetrio needs to be, held accountable for letting Adam Reynolds go. You're going to argue that Adam Reynolds has gone up and he's put the glue back in the Brisbane side with the young side, the likes of Carrigan, Haas, the likes of, the young blokes out back, Reece Walsh and so forth, Cobbo. He's brought them together and he's got them, to the top of the table a week out from the competition and finishing second and looking like a grand final team. And with the Eels, you're right. They lost some big players in Reid Marnie. You look at the way that Lane played this year, he's in and out of it. Of course, Papali'i went to West Tigers. I've lost a bit of strike there and haven't really kicked on the off-field stuff with Mitchell Moses. 2 really disappointing sides. But for the Rabbits, given Reynolds, if you go back to the start of their problems, that's their biggest problem. Elias is going to be a good player, I guarantee you that. But to get Reynolds when he's basically showing them, I'm still a premiership winning halfback. He could actually take the Broncos all the way this year. If he does that, then I'd say the Rebels will make some changes, mate. Definitely.
As I said, you can text me anytime on 8833. You can drop a line on the YouTube channel as well. We will get to those a little bit later on. And very shortly going to catch up with Matty Johns, talk finals and walk through those games. Just before we do get to the break, though, Kempy, Penrith wrapping up another minor premiership, their 3rd in a row. Everyone knew and thought Penrith were going to be one of the best teams in the NRL, but I don't know if anyone had them as minor premiers this year, just given some of the players that they did lose and Kikau and Coruscant, etc. Here they are, top of the ladder once again. Do you give that credit to Ivan Cleary?
Well, I think so. I think you give credit to their development program. This is a legacy club. Like if they win 3 competitions in a row, which is pretty hard to do these days under the salary cap. First time it's been done in 40 years, then you have to take it and say, like, the way that they've built this club and created the legacy and the way that Ivan's been able to pull these kids together over the last 3 years has to go down as one of the greatest achievements ever. Yes, they lost Kikau. Yes, they lost Curacao, but the players that have come in their place, like, who would have thought that Sorensen would be the type of player that he is out on that left edge? I looked at Stephen Crichton, the way that he played last week. Like, he has actually, I reckon, in the last month, become the premier centre of the competition. So he's going to be really hard to stop Saturday night. But for me, Nathan Cleary, Isaiah Yao, they've led that team around, the co-captains. I'll give you my take on where the game's going to be won in a short while. But just I guess the solidity of that team being kept and the bulk of it being kept together. Yes, they've lost Kikau and Curacao, has really got them another minor premiership this year, and they are hot favourites to win another one. I've got to say that. They're paying $1.21 at the moment. The TAB up against the Warriors, who I think at $4.25. I think that's a fair indication of where they're at. And based on their team, both teams have come back at full strength, given that they're 5'8", at the 6th position of Cogger and Tamari Martin. Other than that, you'd probably say, well, these are the 2 teams that I pick at the beginning of the year. Yep. So it's a very interesting first game for the Warriors. It's probably the toughest one out of the lot.
We're going to talk a lot about it between 2:30 and 3, but we'll take a short break when we come back. Matty Johns is going to join us. We're going to run through these 4 games over the weekend, get his take on everything. If you've got any questions, you can text those through or jump on the YouTube live channel. We will be back with Matty right after this. Welcome to Running It Straight here on SENZ. Sammy and Kempy taking you through until 3. Lots of comments coming in on YouTube and on the text machine 8833 for our next guest. Great friend of the show now, Kempy, Matty Johns out of Australia. G'day, Matty.
Sammy, Kempy, how are you, lads?
Mate, we're doing very. I'm going to hit you with one right off the bat, Matty.
He's excited, Matty.
Comes in from Chris. It says, I want to know where Matty had the Warriors at the start of the season.
At best, mid-table,
yeah.
I thought. Yeah, I did. Do you know what? It was funny because when Sean went back, firstly, the Sharks had a decision to make with Sean. Do they keep him or Matty Moylan at the time? And everyone was like, Sean's gone. It was funny. I thought that Sean's season, he had the Sharks. I thought he was outstanding until he did his Achilles tendon. But, coming back at that age from an Achilles tear is a really big challenge. But look, I think even Sean's greatest admirers would look and just be blown away by the season he's had. And it would also add Fanua Blake. There's no... Carrigan and Haas are a great 1-2 combination, but he's every bit as good as those two blokes. So no, I had them. I'm not ashamed to say I had them at mid-table at best.
Yeah, and they've surprised everyone, Matty. Hey, the other ones that we spoke to you right at the beginning of the year were the teams whose wheels never fell off, and that was the Broncos, who finished second up against the Storm on Friday night. But the Storm seemed to have the wood on the Broncos. Do you think that they can come back after 7 days? I go match each other, strike for strike across the board, and the Storm can go up there and get the job done?
Mate, I tell you, Kempy, I've just got a gut feel the Broncos will win this one. But 14 games in a row, Storm have beaten them. Storm have beat them every time in Suncorp Stadium since 2009. So there's some mental hurdles to jump for the Broncos, but it's just a different side, Kempy. Like this Broncos side are looking like the Broncos sides of the 90s. They're big and really strong. They've got great speed. You got Reynolds playing that role that Alfie played. Mam and Walsh are just electric. But the big one for the Broncos, you look at the spine from the Melbourne Storm. The huge threat, very run-centric with Jerome and Munster and Harry Grant and so on. But the big one for the Broncos is just the fact that how explosive their pack is. Melbourne's pack, they'll grind and graft for the full 80 minutes. They can grind as well as anyone and hold their own, but I think they lack explosiveness, where the Broncos have got a lot of it. Like that those two blokes I said about before, Carrigan and Haas, as far as a 1-2 combination and go forward, I haven't seen any better.
Mm. I think, one of the best packs in the comp, Eddie, and they've got, the Storm have got a job cut out for them on Friday night. We'll leave the Panthers Warriors to last. Sharks Roosters Saturday night, 9:50. Lots made about the venue for that game, probably more than the actual matchup itself. But flying high, the Roosters, who Kempy and I were just talking about before, 5 weeks ago we had written them off. We said that's it, they're done. They're not going to make the 8. Here they are on a charge against the Sharks side that have been, still a little bit up and down in 2023, but they are inside the 8. What are you sort of picking for Saturday night up at Shark Park?
It's a tough one. Firstly, on the Shark Park situation, everyone's saying, they should move the game to Allianz. Mate, you've got to be kidding. Why would you surrender your home ground and then hand it over to the opposition's their home ground? Yeah. It's different if, right, imagine you're playing the Broncos and say, well, you moved to Allianz. You'd have you'd consider it. But to play the Roosters and give them the home ground advantage, there's just no way that you would do it. Look, I think that the person that symbolises the improvement in the Roosters has been Brandon Smith, and Brandon's been he's starting to he's hit top form, and he's made such a difference to the football side. Just punching through the middle, and that's made a massive difference to Sam Walker since he's come back. Because Brandon, those runs, that penetration, offloads he does through the middle of the park, it sparks that offload, ad-lib football, which suits Sam. And I reckon a little bit like the Roosters, they've just scaled everything back a little bit. For most of the year, for 3/4 of the year, they were so structured and they were so sideways, but they're starting to get it right. Tedesco, of course, has hit form 2 weeks ago before he had the spell, was outstanding, and Manu comes back this week. So I've got to go for the Roosters.
What about our boys, Matty, up in Newcastle? It's like revisiting the old days. You know, Malcolm Riley. You get full stadiums. The boys are on a roll. They've won 9 in a row, and KP's hit his straps. Given that shoulder injury, may be a little bit of a worry. Do you think they can go deep?
Kempy, I do. Look, I've said this for the last month. Every time they play against a side, I'm going, I'm nervous about this one. But I am nervous about this one. I mean, you consider this so full house at Newcastle, Kempy, and you know what that's like, fanatical hometown support. 9 in a row, Ponga playing the best football of his career, Raiders fatigued and undermanned. I mean, what could go wrong? But that is, all that is exactly in Ricky Stewart's sweet spot. And playing in front of a home crowd with that sort of expectation on that puts pressure on the Knights as well. They've just got to hold their nerve in this one, Kempy. Like I remember, mate, I was telling the boys a story the other day. Well, you would have played in the game 1990, and you blokes were on a roll, and it was you played Penrith at home, and there was a full house because there was a celebration.
Scored a couple that day.
Yeah, you got a couple, Kempy.
I don't know if that's the HIA kicking in there, Matty, but...
Actually, Kempy, I think you're talking in 92 there. This is 1990. But there was a celebration for all the people who had done heroic things during the Newcastle earthquake in 89.
Yes,
and it was a huge celebration. Anyway, the Panthers arrived. The Panthers were out of form. Phil Gould didn't take them to the ground. They went down to Nobby's Beach, had a bit of a run along the sand, a bit of a warm-up along there. They taped themselves up on the bus and arrived 5 minutes before the game and ambushed us and beat us. And the only thing is the Ricky Stewart factor. Like Ricky all week over here has been saying, look, no one's given us a chance, which he's right. No one wanted us in the finals. People have already written us off, et cetera, so on and so forth. You just see he's building the siege mentality. Now, if our pack can go out there and emulate what they've done in the last couple of months, we'll win the football game because they'll give Kalen that freedom that all he needs is a bit of space and time. But still, regardless of, you've got to get out there, and you've got to get out there and win the football game. You've got to get out there and play your best football. It's just not going to be handed to you.
Well, Kempy's got 2 bites of the cherry this weekend, Matt. He's got a big puffer jacket on at the moment, and whoever wins, Warriors or Knights, he's just going to take it off. And
flip it inside out.
Flip it inside out. There'll be something underneath there.
Yeah, one of them will win.
The Panthers Warriors, the one we haven't covered off, Matty, of course, and the one that everyone is interested and excited about on this side of the ditch. I'm not sure how they sort of run the ticket sales over in Sydney, but if it's open slather, I would imagine a lot of Kiwis and a lot of Warriors fans will be making their way to Bluebet on Saturday at 6:05. Mate, do you give the Warriors any chance? Oh, we've lost them, have we?
We'll just try and get Matty back there.
He's jumped off. Maybe I offended him
you
with...
Scared him, mate.
Scared him.
You scared him. He wanted to keep talking about Newcastle.
Well, mate, yeah, why not? We got you back there, Matty. We got him back. We got you back.
Okay, so
did I offend you?
Mate, Trish doesn't pay our bills. So we just sort of wait for him to catch up. So.
Sure, yeah.
I'm looking forward, mate. They're well done to the NRL for moving the game so that, I think the game will be shown at 6 o'clock in New Zealand as opposed to 9:30 at night. Look, there's no doubt the Warriors up against you, playing the defending premiers. I reckon, and Kempy, you'll back this up, I reckon what's really important for the Warriors, if they're going to cause an upset, they've got to upset the rhythm of Nathan Cleary.
Mm-hmm.
If they leave Nathan to his own devices, right, he'll just do whatever he wants, and he'll kick the Warriors to death and push it around the park, the Panthers, and once he starts to get going, they're almost impossible to beat. But they've got to find a way to pressure him. And if you go back, the example I use, in 2016, the year the Sharks won the competition, whenever they come up against the Melbourne Storm, the Sharks knew the way to stop Melbourne is they had to disrupt Cooper Cronk. Now, there's a lot of similarities between Cooper and Nathan. Both of them watch a lot of tape. Both of them, in their own minds, have almost got that GPS of how they want the game to go, and you've just got to deny them that. Now, Wade Graham was the bloke who used to get Cooper. Whenever Cooper called the football at first receiver, Wade Graham would absolutely zero in on him from the inside. And, you know, in Kempy, you know when you're a ball player and they're hitting you from the inside in your blind spot, and you know, it just takes away your time, and they're sort of hitting you side on in the ribs. And even Cooper admitted that it used to rattle him. You know, because he couldn't see Wade coming, he was always rushed and always was waiting for that hit, and it used to put him off his game. The Warriors have to do similar with Nathan. They've got to get him, they've got to hit him hard, they've got to put him on the ground. And I understand, you know, with Penrith, they've got a lot of blokes who can do stuff. There's Isaiah Yeo, there's Edwards and so on and so forth, but Nathan is the centrepiece player. Now, you know, very few people are giving the Warriors a chance, but, mate, the Warriors have got the pack and they've got the talent to cause an upset here. But they've got to go out there, and they just can't go out there and do... You hear coaches say all the time, we'll just go out there and go about our processes. If they just go out against Penrith and have the idea, we'll just do what we've been doing all year and just go about our processes, they won't win. They've got to elevate themselves a little further, and they've got to come up with a plan to upset Nathan Cleary.
I tell you what, Matty, just from the response we've been getting on the YouTube channel and on text, there's a lot of hope and belief from Warriors fans, and I'm sure the team will be feeling that as well. Mate, just before we let you go, the great news for finals football is that we got tons of guys coming back from injuries, and Eagles, Paddy Carrigan back for the Broncos, Ryan Pappenhausen for the Storm, Kalen Ponga's back for the Knights. Mate, who are you looking at to shine throughout the finals from across the 8 teams?
Well, look, and I'm not saying this because of because I'm talking to you guys across the ditch, but I think most, first and foremost, it's Newcastle and it's Kalen Ponga. You know, Newcastle man first and foremost. But I think everyone over here would, you know, even if they've got a side in the finals, would love to see the Warriors make a huge run through. Like there is, mate, honestly, it's the best story in rugby league, what is happening over there at the moment. The popularity of the game, everything that's going on, it's quite amazing, I believe, that just all the love the Warriors are getting and all the publicity, which is amazing because we're on the eve of a Rugby Union World Cup. But, yeah, look, Sean Johnson, I'd love to see Sean hit his top forward and Fanua Blake. I love Fanua Blake as a player. He's big and he's aggressive. He was terrific and Manly. He was a young bloke there. He had some discipline problems at times during the game, but boy, oh boy, he's peaked over there. So, yeah, they're the two blokes, Johnson and Ponga. They're the two guys that I'd love to have big final series.
Yeah, two great Kiwis, Matty. I've got to say, Ponga and Johnson. And Netflix are looking at a movie. Sean Johnson having a deep run through the finals, bringing it back to New Zealand would be the icing on the cake. Thanks a lot for joining us this afternoon on Running It Straight, Matty. Look forward to the finals and especially listen to your comments all the way through it. Cheers, mate.
Good on you, Kempy. Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, Matty. There you go. Matty Johns joining us. Great privilege to have him on the show and some great analysis of the finals games as well. We're going to take a break for news, sport and weather. When we come back, we're digging into Warriors, Panthers on Saturday. You can text through any questions or thoughts you might have on 8833 or on our YouTube channel. Talking Warriors, Panthers between now and 3. News, sport and weather up next. It is 27 minutes away from 3 here on Running It Straight. Big shout out to South Seas Healthcare, Auckland's largest Pacific Wellbeing Service provider. Lots of messages coming in on 8833 and the YouTube. We'll get to them very, very shortly. But let's have a look at the team lists named last night by Andrew Webster and Ivan Cleary. The Warriors, I would say, probably the as close to full strength as they have been this entire season. Kempy, maybe a suggestion that you put Luke Metcalf at 6 instead of Tamati Martin, but if you're looking at the team that started the year, this was pretty much the run-on side that Andrew Webster would have liked. So Chance Nickel-Klukstad, the number one, Dallin and Marcelo Montoya, the two wingers, Rocco Berry and Adam Pompey in the centres, then Tamati Martin and Sean in the halves, Adam Whanua, Blake Mitchell, Barnett in the props, Wade Egan the number 9, then Jackson Ford, Marata Niokore and Tohu Harris in the back row, Dylan Walker, Jazz Tavanga, Bailey Sirinen, Josh Curran on the interchange. So firstly, what do you make of the 17, Kempy? But also the interchange, which is lacking probably one of those bigger props like a Bunty or a Tom Ali. Andrew Webster clearly targeting speed and stamina for this weekend.
Yeah, look, I think what he's targeting is he's targeting a side that can actually go out and stop the front row of Moses Leota and James Fisher-Harris and the impact of Liam Martin and Scott Sorensen up front. And I think if you were talking the beginning of the year with Tamati Martin, you'd actually say this is the best team that they can field, given that they really haven't got a designated player that can fill in for Wade Egan. So the job that Bailey Sirenen's done so far, if they do need to move Wade Egan, is adequate. It's not significant, but it's adequate. So it does cover Wade Egan, and touchwood, we don't lose him too early if there's an HIA, because that will be a major problem for the Warriors going into this game against Penrith. But on paper, the team, you couldn't have picked a better team. The questions you have is like, how is Tohu's knee? I think the back thing was just a joker that was thrown out there to protect Tohu Harris. If you're a coach, you'd go, well, he hasn't had a back problem. I'm pretty sure that you just, the knee may be a little bit tender. You got Tamati Martin was a bit scratchy last week. You give him that. You haven't got the good players around him. As soon as he played short, so if you remember, he went down that left edge. He goes short to Josh Curran. Josh Curran goes through. They find that 80-metre try. That's the game that Webby would bring back to Tamati Martin. He'll say, mate, get rid of the long passes, play short, put him back under again when you need to, or just hit him on a short ball. You don't need the cut-out passes. Tamari tidies that part of the game up. But Matty's hit the nail on the head. Like, if you don't stop the go forward, there's a way to do this. If you don't stop the go forward and the front foot football, you can't get to Cleary. And if you can't get to Cleary, then he opens up the edges. And the edges, for me, are where they've got us. If you look at Steve Crichton, Brian To'o, Isaac Targo last week when he came back was absolutely outstanding. And you throw in there the two players of Sorensen and, of course, Martin, it's very scary on both edges of the football field. So there needs to be a job done in the middle of the park. I think Aidan Whanua, Blake and Tohu Harris, they get as much minutes as possible out there. Mitch Barnett has been really good. Jackson Ford's had a couple of weeks off, so he's fresh as. And Marata Niokore will play a bit of football in the middle of the park. I think when you'll see one of the changes when you're talking about Bunty or Four, and they need someone bigger in the middle, it's actually Marata Niokore. So they'll move him into the middle of the park and they'll put Josh Curran out onto that edge along with Jazz Tavaga and Dylan Walker, and use that rotation to try and keep the momentum going when they do make those 20-minute, 60-minute changes.
The Penrith team, you've rattled off pretty much most of them. The only real out for them is Jerome Luai, Jack Cogger, starting at the number 6. He's had a handful of games for Penrith this year, Kempy, but do you think it's as simple as if you can shut down Nathan Cleary, Jack Cogger does? Because I would say if Jerome Luai was there, it doesn't matter if you shut down Nathan Cleary because Jerome will just run the cutter himself. But Jack Cogger, does he offer enough for Penrith that if you shut down Nathan, he can still be a threat to them? Well,
when you're looking at that and you're asking about who is the player that this final series is made for, it's actually Jack Cogger. And you look at no one's talked about the two number 6s here, because while you talk about shutting down Nathan Cleary, what do you think Penrith are talking about? Because it's exactly the same with Sean Johnson. If you get to Sean Johnson and you make him play quicker, and he's got people coming at his inside and his inside foot of the kicking foot and all that sort of things, then things start to change for the Warriors. So it's a bit of tick for tat there. And then when it comes to your 5'8", they start to play a massive part in this game if the two halfbacks are put under a bit of pressure. Jack Cogger and the team that he's got around him, I think can do that. I don't think having him in the side is that bigger loss. As far as Jerome Luai and the job that he can do. And again, if you look at last week's game, the way that they tied it up, mate, I know it's easy to say you got to get to Nathan Cleary. It's actually really difficult to do.
Yeah, no, I agree. James just texted in saying, do we need to be worried that Tamati Martin hasn't played much footy?
No, not at all. You see, the thing with Tamati Martin is he's fit as anything. And what he hasn't got is he hasn't got game time under his belt, just where he's actually consistently doing things. And I think that game last week will really tighten him back up. So, Tamati Martin's been around. It's not as if he's, a young kid going into the finals. And you actually need that experience there, that big game experience, which is for him as international football, alongside Sean Johnson. Sean Johnson gets to run the cutter. Tamati Martin just has to play that part where he's backing him up when he needs to down that right edge.
You can call through as well if you want to, 0800 150 811 if you want to jump aboard the conversation. Joey's actually called in from Auckland. G'day, Joey.
For a sec, yeah.
You there, Joey? Joey, come in, Joey.
Yeah, hello.
Hey, mate, how you going, Joey?
Yeah, good, Kempy. Look, I was just asking your producer. Look, I think this is the best time, the best chance the Warriors have got of beating Penrith is this game, and so early on in the finals and rolling them. Now, Nathan Astor made a mistake on the TV last night. He made a comment. He said once whoever wins out of the Broncos and the Melbourne, they'll have to pay Penrith. Now, if I heard that as a Warriors coach, I'd be playing that into my players and saying they don't give us a chance. They're thinking that Penrith are going to roll on and keep going. The biggest thing is Penrith are under the biggest amount of pressure because they've got to win three in a row. Well, they don't have to, but they're under pressure to win three in the Warriors. The Warriors have done fantastically well, how they are, and I think Sean Johnson's kicking game's going to be huge, Kempy, because I think some of his kicks, no good just putting the ball up to the fullback and him bringing it back, because he'll bring it back all day long, and he's dangerous, that their fullback. You've got to kick it along the ground, and I think away from him. Otherwise Edwards will bring it back and can carve you up. And I just think that this is the best chance and the Warriors got of beating Penrith, or probably of anyone beating Penrith, to be honest. If they can roll Penrith, I think they can go all the way, without a doubt. What do you guys think?
Yeah, look, I think the game, a couple of weeks ago, Sammy asked us whether or not we wanted Penrith or the Broncos. I wanted Penrith. I think they, at the time, were right for the take. And I think with Jerome Luai out, they still like that. Plus, you get a week off, and if you get another week off for the Warriors, especially the way that they've played this season, I think going into that major preliminary final, they're a definite shot of the grand final, and that means that this game this weekend is so important. How do you do that? Well, the longer you can stay in the game with Penrith, the more panicky Penrith get. Mm-hmm. They're going to come out and they're going to try and put points on us early, and they're going to try and blow us off the pitch. That's what they do. Yep. But you hang in there and you start to get them second guessing and put them in a position that they don't like being in. Yes. See, they don't get in that position that often.
Correct. Yes.
And that's when they start to panic and things don't start to go their way, and the Warriors they've been in those games all the time where they just grind them out. Yeah. And it's a different Warriors side, you've got to remember, than the one we've been used to over the last 3 to 5 years. So I'm just hoping that we can really start the game well and hang in there. And if we get a jump on them, then it's starting to play a part of watching the clock and watching the scoreboard and getting that pressure put back on that Penrith and Nathan Cleary, which is what Matty's talking as part of that significant help that the Warriors will need. But, mate, it's not an easy job, Joe. I will say that. I think you're right. I think if they get a chance, for me, if they win it, the best thing of it is they get another rest. And another rest with this Warriors side, out of every team, they're the team that need it.
The only thing I'm worried about, Kempy, is, you beat Penrith once, can you beat them twice? That's a whole nother kettle of fish if they were to go on the other side and still make the grand final. But you're spot on, I think, as well, putting them into a hole. That's what the Eels have done to them in recent years. It's why the Eels get up over them, is because they come out firing, score a couple of quick tries, Penrith panic, and all of a sudden you hold on. They've got the blueprint right there. There is a quick message in here from Mana, which I thought was worth putting to you. Is there any concern that we play a very similar structure to the Panthers, a style the Panthers are much better at? Do we need to do something a little bit different?
Well, the structures are all the same, and when it comes down to who can pull it off the best, I just going on that kicking game, I actually think Sean Johnson's had the best kicking game all year. out of every halfback. I think consistently what he's doing with the length of his kicks especially is he's getting us out of trouble, but he's got enough height on his kick to get that, especially down that right edge with Rocco Berry and Dallin Martini-Zalesnik on that kick chase and through the middle, stopping him and making their forwards track back. With Moses Leota and James Fisher-Harris, we don't want Dylan Edwards bringing that ball back too far. You know that Dylan Edwards, Brian To'u, Stephen Crichton and Targo especially are going to carry close to 200 metres. Now, if they do that, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
So we've got to get down there. Those first 2 to 3 tackles are going to be critical, but you have to make Leota, Fisher-Harris and them travel back behind the football and use up their energy. They're high-energy players, and if they get a roll-on at the back by their back five, that's their centres, their wingers and their fullback, then it's a lot tougher.
Keep your texts coming through on 8833 and your messages on YouTube. We'll take a short break, come back with plenty more after this.
running a lighter pack this weekend?
Welcome back into Running It Straight. We are talking Panthers Warriors ahead of Saturday afternoon, 6 p.m. kickoff. We will have live coverage here on SENZ. And, I tell you what, Kempy, so many messages coming in on both the text machine and the YouTube channel, and they're really split. Some of them giving us absolutely no chance, and others saying this is absolutely prime for an upset. Reeks of the Warriors Melbourne game back in 2008? But Dennis has called in on 0800 150 811. He's got a question for us. G'day, Dennis.
Hey, boys. I was just wondering, what you guys think about the lighter pack on the bench? Do we need Bunty or Alien?
Yeah, like I was just saying, I think what happens is that Nokore moves to the middle of the pitch and he plays big minutes in there. So Mitch Barnett moves out, and you've got that. I think that interchange where they need Walker and Jazz Tavaga. Jazz Tavaga with his offload and Walker with his short passing game is how Webby will break them up. So size-wise, I'm not really that worried about it. I think you get Penrith with a bit of movement. As opposed to running straight at players, and our team offers that.
Yeah.
So you've got Tohu, Aiden Whanua-Blake, Jazz Tavaga that are moving and affecting that defensive line because of that movement, and then you've got Marata that comes in with Mitch Barnett with that extra interchange and the size in that middle of the pitch.
Nice. Thanks for your call, Dennis. I think, Kempy, I think this game's going to be frenetic, to be honest. I think the start is going to be very, very fast. I think that's what Webby's preparing for. There is, I guess, someone's wrote this in as well about some concern about the fact that guys like Leota and Fisher-Harris often put in a big shift first up, whereas sometimes 100%. With our guys, we take them off after, say, 20 minutes. So the key will be maybe that 20 to 30 minutes where you have Leota and Fisher-Harris on, and we maybe have taken one or two guys off for a quick break, and the damage they might cause in that 10 minutes.
And that's entirely up to the coaching staff. So, reading your players and making sure that there will be players that will be sort of breathing, extremely hard through that short period of time. What you're talking about is experience. All right, they've been there before. They know exactly how to get through their first shift. Our boys, this is all new. It's a step up. Yep. And this is what I want to say about this game. This is it. Your grand final is on Saturday.
I agree.
Don't worry about what's going to happen next week. Mm-hmm. You have to prepare for this game, and you have to play it as if it's the grand final. And you need to get through it as best as you can, doing everything possible to make sure you get that win on the board. And I think if our team go in with that mentality, then we give ourselves a shot. If we hold back, these guys are that experienced at how to get through the first game. They'll put a number on us.
I said Kempy earlier in the week as well. I think it's Sean Johnson, the biggest game of his career, because I think, and for, like you said, it is a grand final, because not only if you beat Penrith, do you give yourself the week off, put yourself in a great position, send them to the other side of the draw, but you also give yourself confidence that you can beat the best team in the NRL, and I think that's invaluable heading into a grand final, because if you lose to them and then you're having to go up against the Knights and then maybe you're facing Brisbane, there's in the back of your head probably a little bit of doubt as to whether or not you can go all the way. So I think that is why this Saturday is so important, and for someone like Sean as well, to not prove but have a big game in a game like this. It'll only do his game wonders heading into the final too.
Defining moment for the team, but it's a really good feel-good story for the game of rugby league, and Matty Johns touched on that. Yep. Everyone is behind the Warriors. So you've got to forget about all that. Let that just manifest and happen. Go out there and win.
We'll take a break. When we come back, I'm going to get a couple of tips from Kempy for the weekend ahead. 4 games to sink our teeth into, and we absolutely cannot wait. Stay with us here on Running It Straight.
to bring something new to the table on Saturday. The first 20 minutes will show us if we've got any chance. I've got to go to possibly, yeah. I've got to go to a fundraiser, a young island boy over here tackled the goalpost, unfortunately, at the beginning of the year. So he's in a wheelchair. So this is former international great, run by a bunch of ex-Kiwis, the Kangaroos, do fundraising. So I'm going to a fundraiser. Gary Freeman and Kurt Sorensen will be in attendance. Go, mate. See.
Right, it's time to run it straight in the truest sense of the word because we're going to get honest predictions from Tony Kemp. Betting with your head, not your heart, please, Tony. Okay.
Don't worry.
Friday night, 9:50, Brisbane and Melbourne.
Look, I think the difference in this game is Reece Walsh. All right, so I know that Brisbane have won the last 14 against Melbourne have won the last 14 against Brisbane, but I'm actually going to back Brisbane to win this one.
Okay, I'm going to go Melbourne. I think they're just that team. They're just that kind of team, and I think the Broncos, with a couple of those younger faces in there, get them rattled, and I think they might crumble a little bit, and I think if anyone can do it, it's Craig Bellamy. So cue Cam Munster, and maybe a little feature from Ryan Pappenhausen off the bench. They get it done. Sharks Roosters, Saturday 9:50.
I'm going to go Sharks at Shark Park.
Wow, interesting, very interesting.
Yeah,
I can't go past that momentum. I can't go past that momentum of the Roosters. Who's the key? Who's the feature?
Oh, Nico Hines. He always has been. Yeah, I think Nico Hines playing at home in front of a crowd, and of course they're burnt from last year. I think they go another week.
How much are we loading up on Knights Raiders?
Well, that's the bet of the round.
Yeah.
That is your multi, and I'll give that one out now. 13 plus, Marzu and Dom to score, and win both halves. I reckon you'll get $5 to $6.
All right, there you go. Panthers Warriors, Tony Kemp.
I'm going Panthers.
Boo.
I'm betting with my head.
You traitor. He's unpatriotic, people. If you're going to lump on me for saying we're not going to win this year, you're going to lump on Tony Kemp for that.
Get on.
I'll put $50 on them. Thank you very much. $4.50. I'll take it when they do
I've
get
been
the W at
listening
8
to you all
p.m.
week.
on
You're
Saturday.
Warriors too to do, mate. Yours through and through.
Live coverage here on SENZ.
Should have gave that $50 to me.
We cannot wait. Join myself and Kempy for the biggest game in the Warriors' history, probably over the last 4 or 5 years, certainly maybe over the last 10. So tune in Saturday evening. Up the Waz.